Okay.
And there's Jason. All right. All right. I'd like to call the June meeting for the Muncie Land Bank to order. As our first item of business, we have our welcomes and introductions. I think everybody here knows each other. No one new. I would accept a motion to pass our consent agenda, which includes our minutes from May, our financial report from April, and our financial report from May.
I'll make that motion.
I guess
Second, I just saw one correction on the minutes. It says Joe Brook instead of John Brook.
Okay.
Just as a reference to his
yes.
attorney, but
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
yeah, but I second that.
So I'm gonna do a roll call vote.
Okay, just one moment, John. John, can you wait just a moment, please? So who motioned that? Was that you, Jim?
Yes, and Jason seconded.
Jason seconded. Excellent. And that was the May 20th meeting minutes and the April treasurer's report. And what else from April? Or was it just those two things?
Financial report.
Financial report for May as well.
Okay, so April and May. Got it.
Yeah, we
Thank
had.
you.
Yeah.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed say nay. All right, motion passes unanimously. All right, now we're getting into our serious voting items, and I'm gonna turn the floor over to Nate. Most of the voting items have to do with property acquisition and disposition. Some of this stuff has been through the A&D committee, and other stuff is new, having to do with the deed sale. So Nate, from there, I'll let you take it away.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I apologize again for the confusion on the link and the Zoom info. So yeah, the first item for needing board approval is the three bids that went through the A&D committee, and we approved their bids. John, how do we? I don't know how we do this. Do we have to go through each one and or can we say?
I think we could make a motion to approve 905 West 5th, 607 South Vine, 3019 East Memorial per the A&D committee's recommendation. Would anybody like to make that motion?
Motion to approve.
All right. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. So Jason motioned and Jim seconded, and I'm gonna. Is there any discussion? Okay.
And I'm John. This is Marta. I'm sorry. I was answering Heather. Was the motion to accept all of them, or are we just with the first one for 905 West 5th?
All three.
Okay. So, so the motion includes the condition that was attached to the memorial property, right? Okay.
So maybe I guess the motion is to pass them as described in the agenda. All right, so we have a motion, a second. We've had some discussion. Anybody have any other comments? All right, I'm gonna ask for a vote here. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Any abstentions? All right, the motion passes unanimously. Nate, why don't you take it away on item B?
Okay. So item B, we're talking about the deed sale, which is going to be happening July 11th. I received that list a couple weeks ago and then immediately sent it out to the CDCs that I've been talking to. I had Eco Rehab and Muncie Mission Ministries respond saying there are certain properties that they would like to have. The long and the short is that that's already been initiated. They're communicating directly with the county, and they're going to be at the commissioners meeting on the 21st to receive those properties themselves. And so the land bank's not going to be needed in that process. However, so point 2 of B, we have a meeting next Thursday with what's called the Housing Action Team, and there's 4 or 5 different CDCs that are part of that. And the one of the objectives of that meeting is to talk about properties on that deed sale list, with the thought that potentially the land bank could help to acquire those. I don't think at that point we're going to be. I know for a fact we're not going to be able to earmark them and get special consideration prior to the deed sale, but we could go to the deed sale and bid on properties for these folks. The authorization that I would like, or I'm asking the board for, is to purchase properties based on the input that I get from the CDCs. Obviously, there would be a discussion with the CDCs about a maximum bid, all those kinds of things. But I don't have specifics other than just that there's going to be an opportunity to hopefully acquire some properties on the behalf of different CDCs, and I think I need that authorization from the board.
So just to be clear, right now, Nate is authorized to purchase properties up to 2 times the assessed value of a property not to exceed $5,500 per parcel. And what I would like to, we might consider here is increasing the amount that he's authorized to spend per parcel, and giving him a total amount that he can spend in the deed sale. Our annual budget for property purchases is $25,000, and we've spent nothing so far. So my thinking is that we could make a motion to enable Nate to determine a maximum bid price for any properties that he bids on, and allow him to spend up to the $25,000 that we have allocated for property purchases in the deed sale.
And just one thing to add: point B and C, I differentiated between authorization to purchase property on behalf of CDCs and authorization to purchase property with no end user identified. Perhaps the motion could be all that balled into one. But just so you know, I was thinking of it as being differentiated.
Yeah. What does the rest of the board think? Do we want to differentiate between properties that have an identified end user and properties that have no end user?
And can you remind me the process for, so if we have an end user like a CDC and the minimum bid for the deed sale is $600, right, per property, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So we go in and we purchase that property. Do we turn around and sell that to the CDC, or do we donate that? How's that work?
We would normally, we have a pass-through agreement, which is very specific about the costs that are going to be incurred by the end user. We've been moving away from a formal pass-through agreement because it's been kind of convoluted, and we've kind of had more of a informal agreement with people. Hey, we're gonna get this property. We're gonna keep track of what goes in it, and then when we settle up, that's what we want back from you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And I think that because of that informality, because we're not, I mean, I think that whenever we are working with a CDC to acquire a property, given that we don't have a contract, we have to assume that we have to act as if we're going to end up being responsible for that property. And so for me, that kind of makes the distinction between properties that we have, someone in mind as an end user versus properties that we know that we're just going to put up for auction. That distinction isn't as important to me. And I think that we ought to make one policy for Nate to just acquire properties generally, or one motion for Nate to acquire properties generally.
One more thing is that the pass-through agreements, when we were originally looking at those and trying to find end users, we were assuming we were going to be acquiring tax certificates, which is a longer process, legal process, could require considerable legal fees, and so it was very hard to be concrete. Now this is the deed sale, and as far as we know, we're going to get clean deeds. So we could actually do pass-through agreements if folks thought that was better. Just to say that was why we had moved away from the formality, because it was just too hard to predict, and it was something that was becoming more of an obstacle to have an agreement with end users than something that was helping.
Yeah, when we were trying to sell tax certificates using a pass-through, we had to give like a range of prices, and people had the range was so wide that the people who were signing the pass-through agreements were just kind of confused. So how should we move forward here? Should we expand Nate's ability to purchase properties generally? Should we expand his ability to purchase properties in a way that differentiates between properties that have an end user? Should we require Nate to have pass-through agreements before going into the deed sale? What's our move here?
I have a question. So the properties that have an end user, are those end users like the Eco Rehab and the other nonprofits that Nate that you mentioned, or private end users?
Well, actually, at this moment, there are no new end users that have been identified, because Eco Rehab and Muncie Mission are going directly to the county to acquire those properties. I'm going to have a meeting with CDCs next week,
Right.
to hopefully identify properties, and there potentially are going to be some developers that say, "Hey, can you help us out?" I don't have anybody that I can say definitively they've asked us to acquire property, but it's kind of a very fluid conversation. And I imagine there's going to be more things that pop up between now and July 11th. So it could be private, local developers, and it also will be CDCs.
Okay.
Well, it seems like a good opportunity, right, to acquire some properties.
Yeah.
And probably a few of them will have structures, I would assume, or a majority of them on the deed sale have structures. Do you know, Nate, or?
Yeah, the large lion's share, yeah.
Yeah.
So the 7 properties that you identified, those are the ones you're talking about?
These are additional property. We have the list on the deed sale, I think, is more than 150-ish.
Yeah. Okay.
The 7 that we are acquiring, hopefully next week from the commissioners, 6 of the 7 have structures.
Okay.
Just to kind of clear that up, over the past couple of months, we've been going through a process with commissioners to acquire properties that didn't sell in the tax certificate sale in the fall, and there's a resolution in front of the commissioners to award us 8 properties,
8.
and
Okay.
that's separate from the deed sale, which is what we're discussing now.
Okay. Not going after additional properties out of the list of 100 plus.
No, we would be going after additional properties that are in the deed sale that's coming up on July 11th.
So we're talking both, right?
Yes.
Yep.
It's
The seven
additive.
properties from the tax lien sale plus unidentified properties that are available in the spring sale.
Okay.
And Nate, you've looked at the entire list of 100 plus.
Yes. I mean, I not in great depth, but we started with the tax certificate
Right.
list from last fall, and so that list has been reduced. What's on the deed sale comes from that.
Okay.
There are a couple that we are very interested in, that were on our original 15 that are not in the 7 that the commissioners are going to be giving us. There's 2 of them. That are, yeah, we would really like to acquire, and then there's a third that's the next point on the agenda that I need to get a board input approval on.
So just to kind of like clarify things a little bit, what we're considering right now is, does Nate go into the deed sale this spring with the current authorization to spend up to $5,500 per parcel, or are we going to make a new motion that enables Nate to spend more money on properties in the deed sale?
And maybe the questions are coming about because I'm Nate. I walk in on behalf of the Muncie Land Bank. What is your strategy? What are you looking for first and foremost? And maybe that's what we need clarity on. And then the rest falls in place because we have a policy in place. You're looking for properties that are fill in the blank. I don't know what that is.
The blank, the answer to that question is that Nate and Joe are going through the list of the deed sale properties, and they're applying the rationale from our strategic plan.
Okay.
The rationale from our strategic plan is sort of focused on market stabilization.
Okay.
And that market stabilization occurs at the block level. So like if there's a block with, all houses that are owner occupied and one of them has been turning over and over and over in the lien sale, that becomes a target property because it will stabilize the rest of the block. If you look in the folder that in the rationale for property acquisition, the nonprofit application for tax sale, each one of those gives a rationale for each property that the land bank is going to take. And if you look at the language that Nate and Joe used, it's this language of kind of arresting blight and slowing and stabilizing neighborhood markets. So I would assume that over the next 3 weeks before the deed sale, Nate and Joe will go through the list of 100 properties, or go through the list of however many properties there are, and identify those properties that meet the criteria of stabilizing markets and
Right.
intervening, at the block level in arresting blight.
And I would just say, again, so we made a proposal to the county for 15 properties. They're going to award us 7. 8 of those, of those 8 that they're not giving us, 2 are going to the deed sale. So those 2 we would like to acquire, because they've already gone through our filters. We like them. The other 6, they're not offered to us, and as of now, they're not on the deed sale. What we assume is that they haven't got the legal process fully completed, and that's why they're not on the deed sale list. But there's the possibility, and this is an assumption, that they could end up at the deed sale. And so if those that we originally had on our list show up at the deed sale, we'd like to get them. They may not. They may just kind of continue to float and then we'll have to revisit them in October. But
So-
I'm asking for authorization to acquire the properties that we've already identified,
Right.
that were not given, or not being awarded to us by the county, and that may or may not be at the deed sale. 2 are, we'd like to get those.
Got it.
Other 6, they could end up being at the deed sale, and we'd like to be ready to try to get them if we can.
So that's your plan going in. And then the third part of this component is what just John went through. Our process of acquiring property is based upon, and he just described it quite
Mhm.
adequately. And that's how you would go about this, up to the limits that are placed upon our budget, which is $25,000 and $5,500 per property. Is that what we're saying?
Yep, and the
Okay.
reason that we're talking about this at all is because I don't think that $5,500 per property is an adequate cap. I think that we ought to amend the cap and basically give Nate discretion to decide how much, what the highest bid that he would make on each of those properties is. And, you know, my expectation would be that Nate makes that determination before going into the deed sale and then sticks to it. But last year when I was in the deed sale, $5,500, there wasn't a lot of stuff going for $5,500 or less.
Okay.
So I think we ought to give him that discretion. Brad, you have a question?
So you're saying that you expect the deed sale prices to exceed $5,500 per parcel?
Yep.
Well, then what was the average sale of the last deed sale?
I don't have that information. I took hand notes during the auction. I never like put them in a spreadsheet and figured out what the average was. But from what I recall, I mean, properties were going for between $8,000 and $22,000.
The properties we would target? The kinds of properties
I'm
we
not
would
able to
target?
make that. I'm not able to really know that because the last time I was in the auction, I wasn't aware of where each of the properties was.
Well, here's what I was thinking before you said that. Was that with an approval already given to the executive director for $5,500 per parcel, there's no reason for us to take an action if those parcels could be secured for $5,500 or less. The only reason we would need to take the action is to breach $5,500. And if we had an idea of what we thought those parcels might go for, we could, you know, kind of conditionally amend that ability for this deed sale to go to that amount. My second question then is, do we not expect to purchase any more properties in 2022?
But and you're asking that question because if Nate
you-
purchased 2 properties, one at 12,000, one at 13,000, that would be our entire budget.
Right. I'm just wondering, like, if we're going to allocate the 25, which is, you know, we're halfway through, I get it, we're halfway through the year, we haven't touched it. I'm just saying, are we not expecting to, I know that we're probably looking at only purchasing from the deed sale mostly anyway, but I just wanted to ask the question in case.
I think it's a good question. I don't know what other kind of opportunities there will be between now and January 1. I guess there's the lien sale. But I really think that with these processes, Nate is working on this all day, every day. And I think that, I mean, I know I am comfortable with giving Nate the authority to decide how to spend that $25,000 with fewer restrictions. Now, you know, the rest of the board might not be comfortable with that, and we can vote on that. But my take is Nate has a pot of $25,000, and because he's really sort of doing all the analysis and in the guts of these processes, we should give him discretion on how to spend that $25,000. and not limit it to 2 times, because there's 2 criteria. One is 2 times the assessed value. And that could really screw us up, like if the assessed value is $100. And then there's a second condition, which is not to exceed $5,500. So that's where I'm just putting my cards on the table. I think that we ought to make a motion to
Are you,
amend that to give Nate more
are
discretion.
you looking to have it amended and like ongoing? So it's not going to just be amended for the July 11th, 2022 sale. You're saying going forward, the executive director would have less limits on that expenditure.
That's correct.
All right.
Yeah. And I mean, the rest of you might have more experience on boards or know where this can get us in trouble. But from where I'm sitting, Nate is at the, he's in it, and he has better ability to judge than I do. So that's where I stand.
I'm good with all that. It was a good question Brad had. So the 100 properties that are on the list, will that change much between now and the end of the year? I mean, they are what they are, right? Back to,
Right.
if we buy what we want to buy now, chances are we bought what we wanted now anyway.
Well,
And-
that's kind of true, but
And we're in July, so
Yeah.
one of the things that's challenging to kind of get our head around is that the commissioners put up maybe 300 properties a year, but there are 4,200 properties that are tax delinquent. And so there is some quantity of properties that are tax delinquent that are not going up for auction. Like and it's hard to understand like how to access those. So this list is going to be the list that's like publicly available from the county between now and January 1. In addition to there's going to be this list and then the lien sale list.
So the other question along with what I was stating is if in September something came up and we've already reached our budget amount of $25,000, assuming we have the ability within the budget, couldn't we modify that and say, we're going to add to the budget $5, go buy this?
Yep.
Yeah, you're smiling.
Yeah.
Brad's smiling, but $5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the ability to do that throughout the year. It's like playing the stock market, guys. I don't buy high and sell low, but we've got a strategy here. So if something happens in the fall, we need to add more money to the budget and we have the ability to do it, we do it. But we're strategic
Right.
about how we make the purchases. So it all makes sense.
Yeah.
I have another question about the 25,000. Did it come from a grant or stream of revenue that was tied specifically to acquisition?
Where we are working on, I think going forward now, there's going to be some more parameters for how we use money. I think as of right now, we're kind of all square. The money that we have, we can spend on what we need to, if that makes sense.
Are we under a timeline to spend it as well? Like, is that $25?
No,
Is it-
right now, no. Now we're going to initiate a new grant cycle, and then we are going to have a new kind of time frame for expenditures. But the money that we have in the account right now is pretty much unrestricted.
Okay.
Yeah. So that all makes sense, like Jim said, but I have a side question. Since it sounds like most of these properties have structures on them,
Yes.
have you also gone out and looked at the structures?
Only the 15. Well,
Okay,
actually,
okay,
we
so
looked at
that's
about
good.
75 actually with Brad and Joe. So yes, we have done that.
Okay,
So anything that we would acquire, we've seen. Unless something else would show up and something would change
Right.
at the detail. But yeah,
Okay, and then my follow-up question is, since we are talking about acquiring structures for the first time, I'm assuming that the insurance is going to go up as a result of that? And are we sure we've got money in that part of the budget to cover the increases that we're going to incur by getting structures?
There is, Jason, would you help out here? Because we had a meeting with George Insurance a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we renewed some of our policies, and we talked to him about potentially starting to acquire lots with structures, and so we're set up to do that. As far as the quote for what that would be per property, I would have to relook at our notes, but yeah, so there would be an increase in our insurance costs, plus there would obviously be an increase in our maintenance costs as well.
Right.
The only thing I don't remember either specifically what it was, but I remember it not being as much as we thought. Like we thought it was actually pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that scared us.
Yeah, I agree.
Good.
I have another question about the potential motion, and the previous motion has granted the ED the limits. What if we amended the previous policy just to make those regulations on vacant land, on vacant parcels, and then we just created a new policy that when we're looking to acquire structures, that we're not going to have that kind of 2 times assessment value, $5,500 limit. Were you seeing lots go for over $5,500? Because I'm going to say there's not a lot in Muncie worth $5,500.
I know, really.
You're not going to get an appraisal on a lot for $5,500 unless it's some type of commercial development potential to it.
Yeah, that's a fun idea. I just don't know why we would want to add complexity. Why not just amend it to have one rule that applies? Is it? I mean, what's the thinking there?
I was thinking that more than likely the structures would exceed $5,500 with lots just wouldn't.
Yeah.
Well,
I was just throwing it out there, so it's,
So for these purposes, I think we've got a pretty good idea that for the 2 properties that Nate wants to go after, which are in keeping with our strategic plan, we understand that might max out our budget, our $25,000. But so at this point, I don't know that we have to mess with revamping our policy so much as was suggested, make a motion to authorize, make a motion to basically suspend the 5,500 limit and authorize Nate to pursue acquisition of the 2 properties up to the maximum budget amount of 25,000. Right? That's sort of what we're looking at.
Well,
for this particular tax sale.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's not just for those 2 properties. Would be my recommendation. I think that Nate should be able to determine which properties he thinks it's in the land bank's interest to go after, and to allocate our $25,000 however he sees fit in order to acquire the properties that meet the land bank's needs for neighborhood stabilization. So I would. Yep.
So you're talking about a permanent amendment to the policy.
We could either do it permanently or we could just do it for this deed sale. But the part that I was pushing back on was the idea that it's just for 2 properties. I wouldn't want that limitation. I would want to say that between now and July 11th, Nate will sit down and create a spreadsheet that has properties and an amount that he's willing to bid on them. And then when he goes into the deed sale, he'll bid on those properties up to that amount and then stop. And once he reaches $25,000, he would also stop. But,
Okay. Okay. So the motion applies to this deed sale, and has anybody made made a motion yet?
no, I'm
Okay,
not.
I didn't think so.
I'm chairing the meeting. But the motion that I would
Okay.
recommend is that we
All right.
lift
I think-
the caps on our authorization to the executive director for purchases. We lift the caps for the July.
I've got a motion.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go for it, Brad.
I move that we amend our financial policy and development agreement to authorize the executive director to purchase properties regardless of it going to 2 times over the assessed value and exceeding $5,500 per parcel.
For this particular tax sale. Right? Oh, you're amending it for the future as well. Okay. How's that sound?
Aren't you going to throw in there up to the maximum budget amount
Budget.
allocated for acquisition?
Oh, yes, up to the budgeted amount.
Okay. Okay.
I would second that then.
All right, Heather, would you mind reading that back to us?
Good luck, Heather.
Yeah, I definitely do not have it.
Oh, okay.
Wait, what I have right now, and just tell me what I'm missing.
Yep.
To amend our financial policy to allow ED to exceed the $5,500 per parcel purchase limit up to the budgeted amount for acquisition.
And to exceed the 2 times the assessed value per property. Other than that, it was great.
And
Mine
Brad was talking so fast, I could barely even understand. let alone
Yeah,
write it
Brad.
down.
Quick question is, and this is permanent. This is not just for this deed sale.
My motion has no sunset.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just go ahead and type it in the chat, Brad.
Brad typing in the chat. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All right.
Jason, were you the second? Who was the second?
Jim.
Jim.
Jim,
Jim, got it. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna give just another moment for discussion here. Any questions?
No, I think we've discussed it to death.
All right, then I'm gonna
okay.
ask for a vote here. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? All right,
Just
So we're
quick,
on to
quick,
item-
sorry, I need to break in just for a moment for the notes. Melanie, I missed you jumping on. When did you join the meeting?
I'm not
It
positive.
was
It's,
about 10 after, 12 after, something like that.
yeah. I
Okay.
think-
Awesome, thank you. So was this the first time you voted?
Yes.
Got it, thank you.
all right, so we're on to item D in the voting items. Nate,
Yes.
take us away, please.
So this is a property that is in Eaton that we found on the deed sale list. We went and visited it, took pictures of it. It's a property that's in a nice area. The house needs to be demolished. It could have a great impact at the neighborhood level, block level. And we feel like this is an opportunity for the land bank to show that we are about not just Muncie, but also Delaware County. That's kind of the nexus of this idea. So anyways, we want to buy a property. It's in Eaton. We think it's good potential to make a real strong impact and be something that people notice and be like, wow, the land bank came out here and got rid of that property. This house that's been there for 30 years in the middle of a really nice little neighborhood. Well, the question is, can we do that? Is the land bank authorized? I talked about it with Brad. He gave me some input. This is the stipulation from our bylaws that says that our audience is Muncie. Our area of intervention is Muncie. However, Brad raised the possibility of the board of directors being able to make a motion that allows us to purchase property outside of Muncie. The one thing I would add that is, if we can't do this, this is kind of a big deal that we're going to have to figure out if there's a possibility for us, because that's one of the critiques that I've heard from different places, is that the land bank is not the Delaware County Land Bank, it is the Muncie Land Bank. I understand there's a legal reason for that. There's historical reason for
Right.
There's- it's
Have
not
you
a
talked to
legal reason.
Leslie?
I'm sorry, Marta?
Have you talked to Leslie about that, our attorney?
No, I have not. That would,
I think you should.
okay.
Because what you have here on the agenda is a quote from our policies and procedures, but we need to know about the state law and the ordinance that the city of Muncie passed.
Okay.
Is there anything in state law or the ordinance that the city of Muncie passed that restricts us to
Right.
Muncie? Or because the way that I've always thought about it, not having legal analysis, is that the city of Muncie is basically doing the work to start the Muncie Land Bank, appointing the board, et cetera. And for that reason, they want us to be interested in the city of Muncie mostly, but there's nothing there that restricts us from operating elsewhere. Now, I think Marta's suggestion of asking Leslie that question is a great one, but what we could do in the board meeting here is pass an authorization for Nate to acquire this property in Eaton, as long as Leslie okays it after looking at the ordinance and looking at state law.
So I looked at that stuff.
Okay, yeah.
And our own, what he quoted in our bylaws is the article, right? So the article for our bylaws says that we're going to activate inside of Muncie, right? I think that's how 36.789.9 gets, or 38.9 gets activated. So that says that the land bank of a second class city could works to acquire properties within that corporation limits. So see, when we identify the corporation in our bylaws, then we restrict ourselves through the state law. Does that make sense? Because they're not going to write, a state law that says Muncie can only act in Muncie. They're going to use terms like subdivisions and municipalities, right? And so that's what they've done with our own land banking law. So when we said, hey, we're going to work to acquire properties inside the city of Muncie, then we're restricted in that way.
So what I hear from you, Brad, is that your analysis is that we are not permitted to purchase properties outside of the Muncie jurisdiction.
Yeah, and so in most of the time, like 95% of the time, you would just stop there. But if the board and the body could come up with a reasonable idea that purchasing a property outside of Muncie's limits was in the best interest of both the organization as the Muncie Land Bank and the city of Muncie, like the municipality, that could probably fly. But yeah, I mean, there would have to be the argument there that purchasing the property is indeed making those two criteria. Now, Leslie might disagree, so I'd still run it by her. I'm not an attorney by any stretch of the imagination. So.
Yeah, I know that there's probably interest on the part of the county to extend the authority of the land bank, but I don't think we can just do that. Like
Well-
maybe an interlocal agreement or something needs to be done to expand our authority. So yes, I would highly
Mhm.
recommend that you discuss this with Leslie.
You know,
Okay.
the county though, I just want to make sure that this is said. All counties in Indiana have the ability to form a land bank. And they've had
Right.
that ability since like 2010. Like this
Right.
isn't new for them, their ability. So, it's a little shocking to come out 5 years later after a municipality's land bank, after a specific, state law that allows it, and say, hey, we'd like to go out into the county. It's a little weird. You've had the ability for a long time to do that. And I think that if it's an opportunity though, to make an MOU to expand our duty, I'm happy to explore that too.
I think that what we've realized over the past 5 years is that there's an incredible amount of cost that goes into creating a functioning land bank. And so for the county to
Right.
repeat that process would be kind of ridiculous, given that the largest city within the county already has a land bank. So at this point, given the kind of the history of where we are, I think it's a really good idea to explore the possibility of serving other jurisdictions. And just to be clear, this idea about the property in Eaton was not my initiative. It was something that Nate identified, but I could think of a variety of different reasons why it's in the Muncie Land Bank's interest to serve jurisdictions outside of the corporation limits. Now, that doesn't really matter because I'm not a lawyer.
I just want to jump in for a second. I really like the idea of figuring out if we can get an interlocal agreement with the county to extend our authority. And I understand that there may be a push to acquire this in the current deed sale because it's coming up soon, right, July. But there is also the thought that this property won't sell at the deed sale, and so there's no rush because we can get it after the deed sale from the commissioners once we've gotten the authority to extend our boundaries. So I love the thought of taking this, but I don't think there's any reason to rush. I think we should check with the lawyer and then talk to the county commissioners about extending our authority if the lawyer says that that's okay. My thoughts.
Yeah,
That sounds good to me.
along with appropriate funding.
Yeah,
The only-
I'd rather hear what the lawyer has to say and then have discussion about what those findings were before we
Yep.
make a blanket approval to go with.
A quick review of our establishing ordinance ties everything back to the state
Yeah.
statute. So there's nothing restrictive in the ordinance that's not already restrictive in the state statute, just an FYI.
Thank you, Brad. Yeah, I'm fine with tabling this or not taking it up and getting some legal analysis from our lawyer. The only thing that I would say is last year, I think every property in the deed sale went. So there is a good chance that we won't see this one again. But we just can't do this given the information that we have in front of us right now.
And I think, if I talk to Leslie and she said it's fine, I can't just send out an email. We can't vote on this electronically through email, can we?
No,
I think
we would
that's
need to have a contingent what do you call it?
You could conditionally approve it, I guess, on the
Conditionally approve it,
attorney's
that's the word.
approval.
Yeah.
If you felt like it, if you thought you could get something back from Leslie before the deed sale.
I'm kind of uncomfortable with all of this, to be honest. Like, I feel like we should have a conversation with the commissioners rather than just surprising them and saying, hey, we've always done stuff in Muncie, and now guess what? We're in the county. Like, I
Yeah.
really think that we should develop this conversation with them, create an MOU and say, hey, we see there's need, we'd like to fulfill it for you.
I agree.
Yep, me too.
All right, so then shall we move on to item E?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All this discussion about acquiring property with structures, we've mentioned this, I think, in the last board meeting. But there's some urgency to create some policy and procedure around selling properties with structures. There's also not just policy and procedure, but also kind of like strategy. And there are different people that we've had conversations with. Some of the folks are on our boards. Some of the folks are friends of the Muncie Land Bank. And so kind of what seems like it would be helpful is to develop the strategy and policy and procedure that it might, can we have authorization? Can I have authorization to form an ad hoc committee? Pull people from our board, people not from our board, to develop this piece.
To develop policies and procedures for dispossessing properties with structures. So, could I get a motion to form that ad hoc committee?
So that ad
Seems like
hoc,
this-
that ad hoc committee would bring forth recommendations to the board for adopting policies and procedures.
Why
I
wouldn't it
think
be?
that the president can make any committee that they want to make. There's no need to motion for that.
No, but why would we add another committee? Why wouldn't it just be the A&D committee?
Because there's like a special set of, I guess, we want some real estate expertise in on that committee, and I was hoping to pull in either Melanie or Annette or both of them, especially Annette because she's been working on a grant program that has that deals with structures and mortgages. And so we were hoping to create something that responded to, I guess, the specific needs that come up with structures, which has to do with, with finance. And so I was hoping to get some other people in on the committee.
You could just amend the membership of the committee so long as they agreed to serve.
All right, so I will do that.
Yeah, or the nature of an ad hoc committee is that they have a specific job, they do the job, and then they're done.
Yeah, that's what I would.
And then the
prefer.
A&D committee stays the A&D committee and does what they do.
Yeah, because there might be people on the A&D committee where it's just kind of a waste of their time to show up to this other thing.
All I know is we've already done this. We've made policy and then the A&D committee went in, and as we acted, we had to amend policy and change policy as things came up. So I just feel like another body that's going to make policy that this other body is going to end up engaging and changing. So why not just have it be the body that's always working on that? I just don't.
Yeah. Maybe we're adding steps, but I'm just what John was saying, Brad, there are some other people that we'd love to get their input as we're, developing it. I mean, I could go have a meeting with them, get their input, and then bring it to the A&D committee. But we'd just love to have more eyes, more expertise in the conversation because it's, yeah.
So what I envision for this is that we get members of our board and some people from local financial institutions in a room for a couple hours, and we develop policies for disposing of structures, and then we present them to the board.
Okay. But I think it's important that group needs to include our A&D committee because they're ultimately going to be carrying out whatever this policy is. So, but yeah, I have no problem with that.
Okay. So since I don't need a motion to do this, I'll just reach out to people via email, and I will make sure to include everybody from the A&D committee, and they can elect to participate. Sound good? All right, we're getting a bit of a time crunch here. Acquisition Disposition Committee.
The rest of it is just basically updates We can go quickly. We've talked a little bit about the county proposal. 7 properties are being presented in a resolution on June 21st to the commissioners. The resolution is in box there. You can look at it. Again, as I understand it, it's still something that's going to be voted on. There was some conversation about that in our A&D committee. Is it something that's already being granted, or is it going to be voted on? As I understand it, they're voting on it on the 21st. We're going to be getting deeds, which is wonderful. Everybody's invited to that meeting. It's 9 a.m. In the county building, 309A. I will be there. Are there any questions about that before I go on to the next point? Nope. Okay. We've started onboarding the new land banking software. We've had 3 meetings now with the Cuyahoga Land Bank. It's really interesting. There's still a ways to go before it's operational, but we're excited about that. Just want to let you know that that's continuing. That was a big investment that we made, but they've been great thus far. Accounting system changes. Melly and I have been working on trying to kind of make some amendments to the way we do accounting. We had a meeting with Whittinger recently. We're changing chart of accounts and kind of creating a new tracking system. That's just something that we've been working on. Wanted to share with you guys, but I'm excited about that too, because it just seems like something that once we get really under control, it'll make things run even more smoother. And then skipping down to the part that's highlighted, rough draft of a plan to create a space for actors with potentially competing interests to meet, communicate, and exchange information about property acquisition plans. That's something that I've been talking about, I think, for the last couple board meetings. I have not created the rough draft, but I left it in the agenda because I feel like this is something that's really important. And I feel like it's something that the land bank, needs to be part of our mission of trying to be a convener, and bring public and private nonprofit folks into a shared space to have conversation, get to know each other, start to coordinate. And I don't have the knowledge locally to be able to do that. And so I really just want to invite you all to think about that. If we were going to have a bi-monthly or quarterly or meeting where we invited people into a space, hosted a meeting, and facilitated conversation about abandoned property, about the different things people are doing, inviting people to give us input about how they see the land bank playing a role. I just feel like it's really important, and I haven't gotten very far on it at all. One thing I recognize is that I need a lot of input from our board, from you all, about who those people are, how would you approach that.
Well,
Yeah.
I would say reach out as needed, and I think that maybe I speak for the whole board when I say we're happy to help.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, are there any other points that people need to discuss in this board meeting? Privilege of the floor.
In terms of what Nate was just talking about earlier, you mentioned getting together with a housing committee that involves like eco rehab and so on. Is that like a committee that meets regularly?
It is a group of community development corporations in the land bank.
Okay.
Yes, that meet, but they're more focused on a specific area of Muncie, and they're all kind of a similar type of organization to some degree.
Okay.
And I think it would be great if we could make that bigger.
Yeah. Okay.
And not replace that, but just something in addition to that.
Yeah. Okay, the only other thing I've got is, Brad was nice enough to put his motion on the chat, but I think, Brad, if you look at that, it says to authorize the ED to purchase properties exceeding 2 times the assessed value of a property, not to exceed 5,500. I think what you meant is to authorize exceeding 2 times and 5,500, right? Okay.
That's what's in, I think when Heather read it out.
That's what I got. Yeah.
Exceed. Yeah.
Sorry, Brad, you're not as good of a secretary as me. Fine.
You can keep the job, I guess.
Yeah.
You'll pay.
Yeah.
Any other items for the privilege of the floor here?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Somebody should second it, I think.
I did.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Have a good one.
Have a good weekend.
All right, bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Father's Day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Happy Father's Day.
Hey, Nate, you want to hang out for a second?
Yeah, yeah. Let me stop this recording.